All right, everybody, if you're just checking back in, we apologize for the technical difficulty. Had some issues with the audio connections here, and then my software decided to freak out on me, so apologies for that. But we're back on with John Miller here. We're going to call this part two of the Backcountry United series here with John Miller. John, it was kind of a funny story you told me beforehand, is that you actually had this happen. You went so long on one of your audio podcasts with a friend that you had to do two episodes. So let's just pretend that's what happened. We'll call it two episodes. So
Okay, sounds
so
good.
yeah,
Well,
yeah, you were just wrapping up talking about the Backcountry United, staff, the board members, and all that, and then we were in the mission statement. So as a reminder,
yeah,
just kind of getting into your mission statement of kind of the pillars of what it was, which was
stewardship.
stewardship, education, respect. So why don't you pick up where you left off there?
Yeah, so stewardship is all about public lands. Basically that's our pillar that the goal is to get our community and culture to think about interacting with our public lands and our public land managers in a different way. We have an opportunity to show up at the table and be leaders and servants in a way that you know changes the perception of our culture. When a snowmobiler starts talking about stewardship and shows up to pick up trash or clean up a trailhead or help the Forest Service with the many things that they need help with, it gives us a seat at the table for a long-term relationship with our public land. So I think that's a very important part of what we want to do. We want to build relationships and partnerships with our land management and change that conversation about our culture. Um, you know, the where I'd like to see people talking about our snowmobile culture in 10 years is, that we couldn't do it without them. But right now, and I think we're getting a little bit better, but in the past we've been just seen as belligerent and loud and disrespectful, and I don't think that represents all snowmobilers. I think
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
a few of us. It's always the few that ruins it for the many, and the more that we start to kind of rein in our culture to change that perception, the longer we're going to be able to continue to do what we love. So
Yeah. Well, that's an
so
important piece of this is it's self-policing, right? Like holding each other accountable for our actions out in the backcountry. And it doesn't matter if you're skiing. Like when I think of the David Lesh dude that's like he's a backcountry, we've all seen him go on there too. But whether it be in this ski industry or the snowmobile industry, you got folks like that are out there just making a bad name for folks to kind of, I'll say it, make asses of themselves. It looks bad for everybody involved, and that's a key thing that we all need to do our part to make sure that we're holding each other accountable and making that sure that the sport is shed in a positive light. So
yeah, and I mean I could go off on many tangents there, but it's like if you're going to be a jackass, it's
yeah,
one thing to be a jackass when nobody's watching. It's
yeah,
another thing to be a jackass and capture it on a GoPro and publish it for the world to see
yeah,
how you behave when nobody's watching,
yeah,
and
no, exactly.
so I mean I think we just have to really think about how we're perceived out there. Even like if you're driving on the freeway and you've got sleds on a sled deck, don't be an asshole
Yeah,
because it makes snowmobilers look bad.
yeah,
We're a very small part of small segment of society, and every snowmobiler out there leaves an impression that represents all other snowmobilers. So I think it's really important to think about how we relate with our public lands in that
yeah.
regard.
I think that's a good call out too, because I don't know that everybody considers the fact of driving to and from the mountains and being seen as a snowmobiler on the highway is something that I think a lot of people probably wouldn't consider. As far as they're concerned, they're just another driver on the road. But to some degree, you're representing the snowmobile community as you're doing that. So it's actually a good reminder for me too, because I know I'm not perfect on the road sometimes. So
Yeah, it's a good reminder for me too.
cool,
No, I
cool.
mean there's always room for improvement, So,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
if we can be leaders, particularly now that we're getting older, like younger generations look at us,
Yeah,
and what we set examples is how other people behave. So,
yeah.
gotta
So
take that.
John, I know. I know one thing that we wanted to showcase tonight too is some of the other things you guys are doing and around like, avalanche education stuff too, and
Yeah.
some of the partnerships you have is, would you mind if we were to jump and play this video that we had teed up tonight and talk a little bit about what you guys did up at Vail Pass? Is this an appropriate time?
Yeah, totally. And then I'll talk about the pillar of avalanche education after this.
That's perfect timing. That's a great tee up actually. So let me go ahead and play this video for everybody. You should be able to see it here. And we'll just sit here quietly
I'm
while it
John
goes.
Miller here with Backcountry United. Super excited to have our first ever avalanche awareness event here at the trailhead on I-70 on Vail Pass. Vail Pass is one of the most recreated winter backcountry areas in the United States, and we've seen a lot of people up here coming up, going into the backcountry without any avalanche gear on. And we want to reach people and talk about avalanche safety. Talk about the snowpack, give people an opportunity to test their skills in the Beacon Park. And we've got some awesome people here from Colorado Avalanche Information Center, Friends of CAIC, Ortavox, Airy, Never Summer Snowboards, 2B. It's just been an awesome turnout.
Watching the video here and wrapping up. 4 seconds to go. So that's a great little promo video for the program that you guys did up at Vail Pass here. So let me swap back over to full screen here. And yeah, tell us a little bit about that pillar of avalanche education safety and what you've been doing there, because that was a great sample of what you guys pulled together at Vail Pass.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to share there. I think the big thing to share before even getting to this point was, I've lost a lot of friends in avalanches, and friends of friends, and there's tons of stories out there. And living in Colorado, in an intercontinental snowpack, avalanche danger is much more significant day to day here than it is in your neck of the woods, right? Like you guys get a lot more density and moisture to your storms, and we get lots of blue skies in between our storms, and that creates great dry powder, but it also is a recipe for avalanche danger. So kind of grown up around the dangers of avalanche terrain, and and I never took education seriously myself until I got passionate about Backcountry United and really became passionate about setting a good example for my community. I've got to give a shout out to my good friend Matt Entz here. Yeah. Matt and I met in, I think, 2011 or 12, and he and I shared a lot of the same ideas about how we needed to show up in the snowmobile industry and community. And avalanche education was something that was very important to Matt and I as well. And excuse me. So, one of the first avalanche classes I went to was a 2-day event. I think it was a 2-day. It might have been a 2 or 3-day. It was something like a level 1, but there was no certification at the time. But, okay. Matt and Brian Lundstedt had teamed up with a gal, Sandra, in the Wolf Creek Pass area. And she's, she wasn't a snowmobiler. Her and her husband are like, legends in avalanche forecasting in Colorado, CAIC reporters. So they kind of teamed up with her on the snow science part of it. And then they taught the snowmobile aspect to it. And that was really the beginning of Matt's program, as well as Brian Lundstedt's program, Tyler's Backcountry Awareness. And so, that was a start for me. And as I progressed with Backcountry United, and as Matt progressed with Mountain Skills, ultimately that led me to a point where I had actually been, quite a few people had told Airy about me, and I was basically recruited and sent out to South Lake Tahoe for a week, and got to work with Duncan Lee and Travis Feist and Justin Sheaf, and there was a whole group of other guys like the guys from Mountain Riding Lab and pro mountain biker Eric Porter, and pretty awesome group of people that we did basically we were the first push of snowmobile specific level 1 instructors. And so that was in January of 16 or 17. I can't remember now.
You
Um,
guys' work back then is what laid the foundational groundwork for the partnership that I have with Erie today to do these, scholarship programs and stuff that I'm doing. And I'm partnering with a lot of those same folks. Mad Ends is one of my key partners. They're an Erie provider.
yep,
Brett Rasmussen is another one. The Mountain Riding Lab guys, Will and James, and then of course Brian Lundstedt
yep,
from Tyler's Backcountry Awareness. Those are my key four partners on this whole
awesome.
program.
I
And a
love
little tip,
that.
yeah, a little tip for everybody who's watching right now. Anybody who's planning on tuning in for my special announcement tomorrow night, which I haven't told everybody what it is yet. Matt Enns will be on the show with me tomorrow night to help me announce it. So that's a hint for you guys. So Matt Enns will be there. John Summers from Climb will be there. And Vicky from Erie will be there. There's going to be four of us getting on there to make an industry-wide announcement tomorrow night for everybody. So make sure you guys tune back in.
Man, and that's just such a huge. I'm excited for it too because, I wasn't in on the deal, but I've been beating the drum with many others, and it's awesome to see some progress on this front. So I
Yeah,
won't say
and it all came together so quick that this year there's going to be still a number of people and companies partnering on this program, and then next year it's going to be completely the more the merrier, right? And so we'll have a whole year to plan the next year's program, and then it'll be well known and everybody knows what's going on. But it's big. I think I can't remember if I told you what it is yet or not, so I don't want to give it
yeah.
away here. But
I've talked to a few people, but it's all good. I'm
yeah,
excited.
yeah, yeah, it's on the down low until tomorrow night. We'll announce it. So
Yeah. Um,
awesome.
yeah. So avalanche education became our big second pillar, and I've been working with Matt as an assistant level 1 instructor, still trying to work my way through the ranks. It's funny, like a lot of the guys that I've come up with, like they're full blown course providers and all in on it. And I think I can't get enough education in this stuff. Like maybe if I'm at it for 20 years, I'll regard myself an expert.
Yeah.
But I really like being in the position to move around, and I hope to continue to assist other groups and course providers around the country, and that's really the way that I want to operate into the future. But just awareness is such a big thing. Like Mike Duffy, for example, does a great job like showing up at all the Skidoo dealerships, and I've actually got my level 1 through Mike and A3 and down in Silverton a few years ago, and that's all super awesome. And but it's like the in dealer experience or the snow show experience, like it's not enough. Like we need to have more awareness events like at trailheads, and I've felt this way for a really long time. And it's really hard to make that happen because when you start dealing with the Forest Service, like there's permitting and sometimes environmental impact process and insurance and all these like technical hurdles that you have to kind of figure out and get through. And but I was in a really cool position because I was passionate about all of this. I actually started working as a board member on the Vail Pass Task Force a few years ago, 2015, and I worked with that group for a couple of years as a hybrid user. You say sled skier, the Forest Service calls it a hybrid user, because you're not a snowboarder or skier or a snowmobiler, but you're all of it, And so I kind of brought that perspective to the board and really wanted to do stuff like this 5 years ago. And, we ran into all these hurdles that we couldn't get over. And, but I didn't give up on it. I just kept doing my thing. And then, last year about this time, started having a conversation with Friends of CAIC, and they're the nonprofit arm of Colorado Avalanche Information Center. And CAIC actually operates like the national database of avalanche accidents. Like they really serve a broader perspective than just Colorado region. Yeah. And so I wanted to do something to help CAIC and Friends of CAIC. Wanted the Forest Service to have an opportunity. I learned a lot about Vail Pass when I was working on that board, and Vail Pass is the single most recreated upon winter recreation area in the U.S. Forest Service like national inventory. So it's kind of a unique situation because it's right on I-70, right between, some of the biggest ski resorts, in the world. And so they get tons of traffic, and it's not just snowmobilers, it's everybody. I mean, you've got a lot of things happening there. You got snowmobiling, you've got skiing, snowboarding, touring. They have a series of huts that people will, get their toboggans and like, ski tour or snowshoe up to the huts. You've got people running fat tire bikes and snow bikes, and there's an area where people are doing like, speed flying, and
Yeah.
like there's all these uses. It's not just snowmobiles or skis and snowboards anymore. There's all these different people and from different backgrounds that are all converging on this one little area. And Vail Pass for a snowmobiler actually is like kind of the newbie zone. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
if you don't know a lot, but you just got a sled because you heard it's a great way to do, like you go to Vail Pass and there's a trail network, and there's a lot of people there. So if anything went wrong, like you wouldn't be like out in the middle of nowhere on your own.
Yeah.
Like, so it's a good place for a lot of newbies to kind of cut their teeth. And, because of all that, I've seen Vail Pass as a huge opportunity to reach people that you just wouldn't have that critical mass anywhere else, really. And
Yeah.
so I started working on this, 5 years ago, and about a year ago, we started this conversation up again. And one of my sponsors is Ortavox, and
Nice.
and they're looking for opportunities to connect in the snowmobile world as well. And so we started boiling this thing together, and it was cool because the relationships that I built on the professional side in working for the Forest Service came together, and that's how like my relationships were the way that I was able to kind of like grease the wheels and get approvals. And suddenly it got approved, and we
Nice.
got to have this event, and I think it went perfectly. Like we didn't have too many people, and so it was manageable, and everybody had a good experience. And
Yeah.
that was what the Forest Service was really afraid of, is like, how big is this thing going to be? How many people are showing up? Like, what do we have to manage? And it wasn't that way at all. It was just a nice organic way to kind of be in that place and catch people on their way out into the field, where we got to have a conversation. Like, did you read the avalanche report today? Hey, I noticed that you don't have a backpack. Like, do you have avalanche training? Like, do you know how to use a beacon? Like, so we had a beacon park kind of set up on the hill above there, and we were grilling hot dogs and hanging out. And so Airy showed up. We had Ortavox, 2B, Never Summer Snowboards. Matt, Mountain Skills, threw in for some prizes. A company called Crux Expedition Trailers. We put together a package of snowboard and a rental of a motorhome and a
Hmm.
a level 1 class with Matt, and some Ortavox gear, some 2B gear. So we had a bunch of like great raffle prizes. So we raised money for Friends of CAIC, and just got to like cross pollinate, like bring all these different people together. And
Awesome.
I mean, even like Bureau of Land Management and Colorado Parks and Wildlife showed up, like, so we actually got a couple more groups to show up, and everybody was just like, oh my gosh, like, why haven't we done this before? And
Yeah. Well,
and
it's the unique perspective. It's this one person who has this passion to be inclusive of everybody, and it goes back to that diversity mindset again of, the backcountry is for everybody, right? And it's like supporting everybody and bringing everybody in on it. And that connector that you are is what helped make it happen. So nice job.
yeah, it was pretty cool when we got some media coverage for it. So like one of the local newspapers, the headline was "Snowmobiler brings backcountry users together for avalanche awareness" or something like that. And it was just
That's
like,
awesome.
yes, like this is how I want our snowmobile community to be
Yeah,
perceived,
that's awesome.
and so anyway, like Forest Service wants to do more, and so
Perfect.
we want to make it bigger next time, and maybe
Yeah.
we can scale it and take it on tour and do that sort of thing. And So I'm excited. And, it was funny though, because literally right after that event was when COVID blew up, and
Exactly. Yeah.
they shut the whole world down. And, before actually, I'm going to use this as sort of the segue into our third pillar, which is, mutual respect. So, we've got stewardship, education, and respect.
Yep.
Respect is all about, just because somebody travels in the backcountry differently than you do, doesn't mean they're any less of a human being that wants to be in nature. And if we can respect one another and look out for one another, and, you know, and it applies to the avalanche side too. Like when you've got skiers above, above or below a snowmobiler or vice versa, like thinking about like the realities of other users can actually be life saving.
Absolutely.
Or if there's a group of people like on foot, like out in the middle of nowhere, and you're legally in that area, probably wouldn't be a bad idea to cruise over and take your helmet off and turn your snowmobile off and have a human conversation with those people.
Yeah.
Hey, great day, how are you guys doing? Is there anything I can do to help you guys? Like, I have this machine, I could haul your toboggan across the field, or up
Yeah.
the mountain or whatever. Like, I can make your life so much easier in 5 seconds with my machine. And if we can just start building like a respectful dialogue like that, I've
Yeah.
done it so many times, and it's so funny, like the feedback that you get, because they're like, man, I thought snowmobilers were assholes. You're like, no, like I'm just like you. I just, I look like a robot when I'm zooming past you in all my gear, but
Yeah.
we're all people that just want to be outdoors. And so, that mutual respect is like a really important aspect that ties all of this stuff together. And,
Yeah.
so anyway, like we have this event, goes really well, and then COVID hits. And here in Colorado, I think it happened everywhere. But I think Colorado might have led the way in this. They shut down all the ski areas,
Yeah.
like that, like in the midst of March, like the beginning of March, like
Ski
the
season.
best
Yeah.
time of the ski season. And so of course, ski areas are closed. Where do people go?
Backcountry.
Yep. And so all of our popular areas like Berthoud Pass, Loveland Pass, those two in particular, a lot of the ski areas as well, people were, crowding the parking lots and, hiking up the ski areas. Vail Pass, turned into a complete shit show because, like the Forest Service, actually, they had to sort of like shut things down as well because their employees, and like, and
Getting
they were on a
overwhelmed. Yeah.
skeleton anyway. And, and then there's plowing, and there's people not following the rules, and like people not paying the fees, and like people not parking their giant toy haulers where they're supposed to. And it just like compounded and compounded and blew up. And like, next thing you know, like they had to barricade off the Vail Pass exit. And,
It's crazy.
the Berthoud Pass parking lots were, totally crowded and were causing like traffic issues on a mountain pass. And so you have all this happening, and you think about these skiers and snowboarders that probably there's probably a lot of very capable skiers and snowboarders out there at a ski area, but you put them into an uncontrolled backcountry setting, and they don't have avalanche education, they don't have avalanche gear, they're not tuned in with the etiquette and kind of how people move around. And like Berthoud Pass as an example, that's some gnarly terrain. Like it's big cirques and cornices and scree fields and chutes, and it's big avalanche terrain. And so you have all these inexperienced people flooding these areas in the biggest snowfall time of the season, and it's a recipe for disaster. I'm actually blown away that there wasn't more accidents. If we would have had the winter that we had before, that was a historic avalanche year, it would have been, it probably would have gotten to the point where they would have had to make a
Yeah.
a statewide closure of backcountry skiing. I mean, I think it's totally within the realm of possibility that that's a measure that, the authorities might take in the future, the way things are going. So, so that was really interesting to see. And all along, if I rewind back, 10 years to when I'm thinking about all these things and like, projecting like where I see things going, like the backcountry is spiking. Like there's more and more users going into the backcountry. There's more and more conflicts. There's more and more avalanche deaths and accidents. Like, at some point, like we needed to create some leadership and bring people together. And then all of a sudden when COVID hit, like it made all of like everything that I had been working toward very clear, like why the world needed, what I had been working so hard to establish. And so, now here we are. We're there's some areas that have already gotten some snow over the last couple nights, and people are starting to get that fall, winter. Yep, totally. And and Vail Resorts actually announced their plan for how they're going to operate in a COVID world, and it's a little bit concerning because they're essentially putting a reservation system on all their ski areas, and so no longer will you be able to check the snow report at 5 o'clock in the morning and call in sick and haul ass to the mountain. Like no, you've got to make a reservation a week in advance and hope for the best. And I think that the ski areas are about to become so restrictive that people are just going to go where there's the least amount of friction, and that's going to be going to the backcountry. And I think it's going to be a cascading effect where all the people that were at the ski area before are now getting pushed into the popular backcountry zones. All the people that were at the popular backcountry zones are now going to be pushed to the less popular backcountry zones,
remote ones,
so on and so forth. And then I've also seen tons of chatter all over social media about, time to buy that snowmobile, and which I think will be good for our industry, but our supply chains are the problem in the manufacturer realm. So like this summer, I've been following like the RV industry and the power sports industry, and like the dealers are healthy because they've sold through all their inventory everywhere.
And they're unhealthy because they have nothing left to sell. Like, and actually it's local dealers, the same thing. It's like everybody is pretty much wiped out of inventory. The second something hits their showroom floor, they post a picture of it on their social media platform and it's gone within 2 days. It's like, it's just crazy. And the snowmobile industry, I think it's gonna be the same thing going in.
And I think that anybody who's going to sell a used sled, like I don't think you're going to have to put that OBO at the end of your listing. Like ask what you want for it and hold that value, because I think there's going to be more people than we even realize that want to get into snowmobiling this year.
But I'm going to interject here quick, because I think it's one of those things where I think it's a call to action, what you just stated, and it's a call to action for all of us, right? It's like for those of us who do have some understanding and some education of avalanche and backcountry safety and etiquette, is to go out of our way to be even more engaging with those that we're seeing in the backcountry, to check in with them, because
absolutely
there's pretty obvious behavior from somebody who's trained versus not trained that you can identify pretty quick. Like if you got somebody on a snowmobile by themselves hanging out in the backcountry, like that's a red flag. Obviously, they're by themselves. Maybe they're wearing a backpack or not wearing a backpack is another thing you noticed, right? And there's just a number of things that you're going to be able to tell, like, okay, this is somebody who's new at this, right? Maybe it's in the snow park, they're unloading their truck or their trailer for the first time and they're struggling, right? Like those are the kind of people you need to walk over to, introduce yourself and offer some support and help, maybe bring them into your group, give them some guidance. And this is the perfect opportunity to bring these backcountry communities together and really build this bridge that you've already created. So
totally. Well, and more so, if we don't behave this way, it's going to turn into conflict, and that conflict is going to turn into reports, and that's going to turn into closures and restrictions. And so not only is now a good time to take people under our wing and show them the ropes, and but it's also the time to build bridges and
Yeah.
create friendships and relationships and surprise people coming into the snowmobile community and show them who we really are. I mean, the snowmobile culture is resilient. I mean, we're entrepreneurs and we're blue collar and we work hard and we're family oriented and we're community servants and leaders, community business leaders. And, I think a lot of that cultural side of our community gets lost because they just see the snowmobile. They don't realize, how does this guy, how do all these guys pull into the parking lot with, $100,000 brand new truck with $100,000 of aftermarket parts built into the truck and a $50,000 trailer with, three freaking $40,000 mod sled. Like, that money comes from somewhere, and it's because those people work hard and they're upstanding members of our society. And like, this is such a chance for blue collar culture to show up and show people who we are and let all the politics fall away and stand in this position where we can be appreciated and leader, just leaders out there. So
No, it's amazing. So yeah, you're spot on. You're spot on. And so, John, I'm all about setting records, right? Like, and I think tonight we've set a record. What do you think the record is that we just set?
I'm probably the longest talking guest you've ever had.
You warned me about that on the way in, and the fact that we had the break in the middle and everything else too. We're officially, for anybody who's been watching all of these episodes, is we're an hour and a half in at this point, which is officially the longest episode I've ever had, which is fine. It's awesome. You got a lot of great content, and I'm happy to spend the time with you. But I'll challenge us to kind of think of how we can kind of start wrapping this up. I know
Sure.
you got some people you want to thank, and you want to kind of, sponsors, other people you want to do thank yous for. Um, I don't want to miss that opportunity, but like, go ahead and kind of wrap up your thoughts on what you were talking about there, and then we'll
Yeah,
start winding this down for everybody.
totally. Well, I think, I'd like to kind of tie up what Backcountry United Foundation is. Like, I've
Absolutely.
been spending a lot of my own time and energy and money and, in perpetuating this idea that I've had for many years. And, all that adds up. Like, I'm a family man. I own a small business and I've got to support a family. And like, people keep telling me, like, you can't just keep pouring all of your energy and resources. Like, we should make a foundation so that, like, people can be a part of this and join and support. The foundation has really been established so that we can legitimize this vision. Are we still having full audio?
Yeah, I lost my thing again too, but I think we're okay. It's still going, so you keep rocking it. I'm gonna keep it rocking.
So all the volunteerism that we've been doing for the last 7 years, like, now has an official organization behind it with a team of very high functioning, amazing, people who love the outdoors. And we really want to inspire this sense of, leadership in our community. And we want to do that. And, we want to be the leaders that set that example for our community and build on that. So that's what the foundation will continue to do. That Vail Pass event is but one of many things that are, slated for the future, and we're going to keep building on that. The other thing is, I would not be here without, hundreds of amazing people that I've been blessed to be, to spend time in the mountains with and have their support and be inspired by them. And, there's no way I could name all those people. But huge part of my, particularly my avalanche professional, as well as Ari and all the folks over there. So I'm sure I'm forgetting important people. Please forgive me if you know I'm supposed to give you props, but no it's slipping my mind at the moment. So, but I think those are, you know, the important ones to mention. So
sounds good.
You can check out our new website at bcufoundation.org. You know, donate if you'd like, but you know, really we want to just build our email list and folks who want to join. And you know, if you have a vision for how you can be a part of what we're doing, or how we can come to your area and do something meaningful, you know, we'd love to hear all your comments and feedback, and want to get you into our email list as we continue to build momentum. So I think that pretty much covers tying it all up.
Sounds good. Are you able to still hear me okay? I'm fighting the headphones too. So I think our audio has been cutting in and out a little bit there too, but we'll go ahead and wrap this up. I know everybody's been watching and you know, been having a great time. So we'll go ahead and wrap up the show. I'll plug together both of those first and second videos together on the Facebook page. And God bless everybody and have a great night. Don't forget to live large.